Let's put Nancy Mace in charge of one of these committees, right? I'm telling you, man, she's going to be at the center of this thing because she knows what's going on, and she's tough. A lot of these other guys, a lot of talk going on, right? So, Comer, let's get something down here, right? Let's do it. Action, action, action. Speaking of action, coming up next, America Sunrise. I want to thank you guys for being with us today. We'll be back tomorrow, bright and early. See you then. America Sunrise is next with Miranda Khan. Stay with us.
Hurricane Idalia just decimated Florida. Should we be putting our tax dollars in places that are prone to disaster, or should residents in at-risk locations simply move?
And is a certain New Jersey senator the ultimate swamp monster? Bob Menendez again under investigation for questionable deals and profiting from them.
And would you get an app on your phone that will help authorities track down voting irregularities? The future of a fair and free election is now in the palm of your hand. Just one click away. We've got the latest details.
A football coach dedicated to his team. His right to pray before the game under fire this morning. Now a victory at the 50-yard line.
And a young patriot falls victim to a woke crowd, all because of an iconic American flag patch on his backpack. Those stories and more as American Sunrise starts right now.
We've got your back as you start your day.
You are articulating what the majority of Americans feel today, and I really appreciate that you do.
Y'all tell the truth.
You guys are our voice.
We watch every morning while getting ready for work.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Dr. Gina. Welcome to American Sunrise.
Yes, welcome and welcome back.
Thank
Good to
you.
see you.
Thank
Missed
you.
your
Nice to
beautiful
be
face.
back. Missed you.
We're coming live to you here in West Palm Beach. A lot going on today, especially with the aftermath of Adelia. A lot of people still without power. Let's get the very latest details now. Should we bring in Terrance?
Bring in Terrance in Denver with the latest headlines. Terrance.
Hey, ladies, good morning. Good morning to you at home. David Brody will be joining us here in just a little bit. For those of you thinking, where is David? We'll see him here in a little bit. Well, it just keeps coming for President Trump. This time, it is New York Attorney General Letitia James sending a $250 million jab in the direction of the 45th president. On Wednesday, James filed a motion in support of her lawsuit against Mr. Trump, which is set for trial in October. In her filing, the Attorney General says that evidence in her civil case against the Trump Organization shows, quote, repeated and persistent fraudulent use by the former president and his family business of false and misleading financial statements. President Trump's lawyers immediately countered, asking a judge to dismiss the entire case, which they call a, quote, crusade against President Trump. All of this has to do with James's lawsuit against President Trump, his sons Don Jr. and Eric, and the Trump Organization over allegations that the business overstated its value by more than $2 billion in order to fraudulently obtain better terms on loans and insurance. By the way, President Trump will join John Solomon and Amanda Head on Just the News, No Noise tonight at 6 Eastern. Make sure you tune in for that. Former New York Mayor Rudy Giuliani has to pay tens of thousands of dollars in legal fees for two Georgia election workers who were suing over defamation. Wednesday, the judge hearing a case brought by Ruby Freeman and her daughter, Wandrea Arche Moss, said that Giuliani failed to turn over requested information in the case and thus has to pay the cost. The women are suing, claiming that they were falsely accused of election fraud. While the case is moving forward in federal court, the judge says Giuliani will have a final opportunity to produce the requested information or face additional sanctions. And Tropical Storm Idalia is blowing into North Carolina right now after tearing through Florida as a Category 3 hurricane around this time yesterday morning. The system has since dumped inches of rain on South Georgia and South Carolina. While cleanup and recovery kicks into high gear today, so far, no storm-related deaths are being reported. No storm-related deaths, are related to the storm are being reported in Florida. At least one death is being attributed to the storm, though, across the southeast region. Right now, utility crews are back at work trying to restore power to all of the 500,000 people across the southeast who lost electricity due to Idalia. Officials still haven't put a price tag on the damage that Idalia caused, but we expect that to happen at some point in time over the next couple of days. We'll, of course, be continuing to monitor that. All right, let's get you back to Miranda and Gina. And ladies, I just have to ask, how are things there since you were in Florida and West Palm Beach? I'm hoping you guys weren't really affected by all of this.
We weren't. We did have some heavy winds the other day, but, you know, Florida is a big state. Yeah. It's a long state. So I know anytime someone sees a hurricane, they always reach out. You know, my friends that are in other states,
yeah.
So are you okay? And it's like, no. But I do have friends that live close, like northern Florida, close to the Georgia, where that border is. And thankfully, one of my friends said, we dodged a bullet, so she's doing okay. She has some cleanup to do, but all is well there.
The only thing I noticed
was
an incredible supermoon.
Yes,
and it was even up this morning as I was driving into work.
I know.
It was up.
I took a picture of it.
Phenomenal, really amazing. All right, let's get to today's Bible verse. It is from Proverbs 3, verse 5. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge Him, and He will direct your paths. I think especially as we sit many times in Florida and other places in the path of not just hurricanes, but in the path of the evil that is headed toward us, this is a good, just a generally
Reminder.
good Bible verse to pray over and to remember that God's promises hold true no matter what the crazy left is doing.
I love that. Speaking of prayers, real quickly, I have to get an update on Bo, your son.
Thank you
Bo.
so much. Yes, the chat was asking. He's doing really well. The really funny thing was when he woke up on the medications, whatever they were, he believed that he had a phantom arm, and he was calling it his spirit arm. And he's like, "Look, Mama, my spirit arm can go through my leg and everything," because his arm
Those
was
were some
deadened.
serious drugs.
It was so funny.
But he broke his arm. In case you missed
Yes.
it, Bo, her son, had his birthday over the weekend, and he broke his arm and had to have surgery yesterday. But he's doing well.
He's doing well. No pain meds so far. His doctor is sure. He has a huge plate, this whole part of his arm, and 6 screws all the way up his arm. But his surgeon assured me that he'll, other than having a plate in his arm for the rest of his life, he'll recover and do really well. So we're prayerful and hopeful, and thank you all so much for your prayers.
All right, let's get back to Hurricane Idalia weekends, as we mentioned earlier, as Terrance did.
Thank God.
Makes her way, right?
Yeah.
Makes her way up the East Coast. Unfortunately, the damage that she left in her wake will be enormous. We know that, right? Stretching across several states. As in the case, FEMA will sweep in to help residents rebuild, as they also do with all natural disasters, including yearly wildfires that decimated California. But here's the question some are asking this morning. Should they be doing that? Some people do ask this. Should your tax dollars be used to keep people living in areas that are prone to some of these disasters time and time again?
Yeah, I mean, it is a question that's logical to ask, and you think, well, then just do you vacate the whole state of Florida? California has wildfires and earthquakes. Do we just refuse to pay for that? I mean, it really is a question. The whole Midwest has major tornadic activity
and floods
every year, and floods. So there's just basically no place that's safe. We just saw what happened in Hawaii. What a fluke! Wildfires started by basically government ineptitude. That kept those live wires live, and they sparked the fires.
There's still controversy over that, right? Joining us now with some insight is the Heritage Foundation's Brian Kavanaugh. Brian, thank you so much for joining us.
Brian, is FEMA rebuilding areas over and over again, in your opinion, that are prone to natural disasters and repeated destruction? And are there some smart answers to this? Obviously, we can't say, leave the Midwest, leave Florida, leave California, leave Hawaii, because every place is prone to some sort of destruction. Even the South and the tornadoes there can be seasonally really destructive. What's your take?
It's a great question, Dr. Gina, and I hope Bo's having a speedy recovery. But when you look at it, FEMA's operating within the authorities that it has in the law. And if you go back to prior to 1971, when we didn't have the Stafford Act, and look at how the nation responded to disasters, it was very disjointed, and it would often lead to U.S. citizens being without livable conditions, food, and it basically looked like a third world country if you go back to prior to 1971 and how we handled disasters. What we need to do from a perspective of how do we respond, I think what you need is FEMA to stop being the insurance underwriter for the country, especially when it comes to public infrastructure. There's opportunities to explore private insurance markets for public infrastructure, and there's a need to adopt better building codes and standards, especially as the population moves closer and closer into areas that are prone to having wild fires, hurricanes, and other climate-related, weather-related issues.
But just as a follow-up to that, I'm sorry, and thanks for your well wishes for my son. We've seen in the state of Florida, for example, our insurance costs, we're going to talk about that a little later in the show, in some cases triple and quadruple. So is there a trick between, because of course I am for privatizing anything. I think FEMA is a walking disaster, and Miranda's going to get to that with you in just a moment. But is there a trick to some sort of balance here between insurance costs going crazy and turning everything over to an incompetent government system?
Absolutely a challenge here, and what you need to do is when you're looking at it, we don't have the insurance markets in a stable enough place to be able to have affordable rates. And I think a little bit has to do with building codes. It's a tricky space. What kind of building codes are jurisdictions adopting. Florida has the most aggressive building codes for hurricanes, and it's proven when you have hurricanes hitting Florida every year in homes, you're not having the roofs ripped off of homes. And that goes back to just smart building codes that Florida has adopted over the years. In terms of the cost of insurance, that's going to be one that we struggle with. I don't see a near-term solution on that one.
Yeah, unfortunately, we are coming up against the clock, but real quickly, we're looking at Hawaii, right? They finally got FEMA workers there, but they're 45 minutes away. They're spending $1,000 a night on hotel rooms when people still don't have water and supplies. So in the last 30 seconds we have, based on your experience, what we've seen, and again, codes have changed, going to Gina's point, should we get rid of FEMA and privatize everything?
I think that would be a risky proposition. I think what you want to do is change the paradigm for FEMA. Right now, FEMA is a very large organization and it focuses very heavily on long-term recovery. You've got disasters that have been open for 2 decades that FEMA is still supporting, still having administrative oversight, and that comes with a large cost. I think what you could do, Congress could look at changing the paradigm for FEMA and having them really focus on the immediate response and closing that gap for these large black swan events, these truly catastrophic events, which today we seem to be sending FEMA to events that should be managed at the state and local level. Not counting
I think there's no doubt about that. Well, our prayers, and as you know, go out to those affected. We're so thankful also, prayers of Thanksgiving, that it seems like the life loss will be minimal to none. And we want to have you back under happier circumstances. Brian, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you both. You guys have a great day.
You too.
Still ahead, $250 million of your tax monies are not headed to help your fellow Americans. Instead, headed to Ukraine. Why is that, though?
And later, is Bob Menendez the ultimate swamp monster? Another probe, more allegations, and some serious questions being raised about the senator from the swamps of Jersey. That report next.
Welcome back to American Sunrise. I'm Dr. Gina. You know, you talk about rhinos on the march. Take a look at this headline, Miranda and Terrance. An anti-Trump Republican group has launched a 6-figure ad campaign targeting Trump over the Georgia indictment. A billboard will be plastered with anti-Trump messaging in New York City's iconic Times Square. The ad campaign scrolls through all of Trump's felony charges, all 91 of them, and shows his iconic mugshot. Terrance, I think they're trying to help him go for the win. In New York, they finally figured out that city is falling down around them without folks like Donald Trump at the helm. Do you think that's the deal, Terrance?
You know what? I think you make a great point. First of all, this is his backyard. He's a New Yorker. So New Yorkers aren't going to turn on Donald Trump. And we've already seen that the more promotion all of these cases against him gets, the more it actually promotes Donald Trump. So I think this is going to be a big win for him. But Miranda, I'm really more curious about your perspective on whether all of this is simply just another plot from the Uniparty to try to hammer Donald Trump.
That's exactly what it is. There's no question about it. And I think, John Solomon said the other day, and I think this is so key, the difference in his messaging now is really working in his favor because he's making himself more a representative of the people. So saying, they're going after me, they're going after you. And I think that is really resonating with the base. I'm curious to know what
Not just with the base. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No.
Not just with the base, though. Let's remember that this messaging is permeating across all racial lines, especially blacks in the inner city can relate to feeling persecuted and wrongly charged. And this is something that's historic, really, with the black community, and to some degree, even with the Hispanic and other minority communities. And so this is something that's resonating with them, and they're identifying with this person that's been made out to be this monster in the press, and they're having to ask themselves a lot of questions.
No, I think you're absolutely right, Terrance. I mean, it was just the other day, right? I mean, finally, he was allowed bond, but there were 19 defendants in Georgia. Harrison Floyd, again, representing the black voices for Trump. He was the only guy that was in that prison where, again, they've had 4 suspicious deaths and 1 month. That doesn't look good. In fact, I think it works in Trump's favor more than it hurts him. I mean, finally he was given bond, but I mean, it took a while.
Yeah.
Took several days when everyone else literally walked in, got fingerprinted, took a mugshot, and walked back out. But it's funny that you mentioned Harrison Floyd. I just read an article this morning that he's allegedly considering running for Congress now there in Georgia as a result of all of this. And he's basically saying just what Donald Trump is saying, that all of this has emboldened me, all of this has kind of raised my profile, and so now I'm considering running for office as a result of this persecution. Not prosecution, persecution.
Not
I want to make sure you heard
surprising.
me right. Persecution, not prosecution.
Yes.
Exactly. I'd love to know what our viewers think about this ad. Again, we are monitoring Getter as always, but you can also go on Truth Social. You can go on Rumble and share your voice with us. All right, still ahead. This senator may be from New Jersey, but the swamps he plays in are definitely the type found only in D.C. Another probe into the shady deals of Bob Menendez. That's just ahead.
But next, Americans from Florida to Maui are struggling to survive after the recent natural disasters that left their homes quite literally in ruins. So why is America sending $250 million to Ukraine instead of helping those in need right here in the United States? That story as American Sunrise continues.
This news break is brought to you by AMAC, Association of Mature American Citizens.
It's 8:21 Eastern Time. Hope your Friday Eve, as we like to refer to it, is going well.
It's Friday Eve.
It is. It
Yes.
is. Welcome back. We're going to help you get through this day because weekend is almost there.
Almost within your grasp.
You can almost taste it.
Yes. All right. Let's check in with Terrance, who said, by the way, this morning, we kind of went over what we were going to wear this morning so we don't all wear the same color or something weird. And Terrance said he was going to wear powder blue ruffles, I believe it was. Terrance, you have some headlines, but I'm wondering what happened to those blue ruffles.
Doctor, boy, you tell it all. You tell it all, Dr. Gina. That is hilarious. Well, I got the powder blue. The ruffles was a joke. That's hilarious.
I love the powder blue, though. It's beautiful. And I especially love it's kind of a lipstick pink tie and a little hanky thing there. Oh, I love it. I dress all the men around me, and you're just lucky you're not too close, or I'd have you in blue ruffles. I think you would rock the blue ruffles.
Well, it's not about what you wear, it's about how you wear it. And so I would wear it with a lot of distinction regardless. There you go. Dr. Gina, you're hilarious. I love you for that. You are hilarious. All right, let's get to a couple of quick headlines here. This is particularly for those mature Americans out there. The tax-deferred amount that you'll actually be adding to any of your 401k plans next year, well, it's only expected to increase by just over 2%. That's the word this morning from pension consulting firm Mercer. The limit on contributions is expected to go from $22,500 this year to $23,000 next year. So yeah, I did the math for you. I'm not good at math, but I got this one. It's only $500. Mercer says the same will be true for 403Bs and 457 plans, which are the equivalent of 401ks in the nonprofit and the public sector. Analysts also say don't expect an increase in the $7,500 catch-up contribution limit that's allowed for people over 50 years old. That means that workers in their 50s and 60s will only be allowed to contribute a maximum of $30,500 to their retirement accounts next year. However, an increase for catch-up contributions is reportedly in the works for 2025. Despite all of the legal cases against him, President Trump is fired up and on a campaign warpath. Taking to social media with a flurry of policy and platform videos, the 45th president pushing back against what he calls COVID tyrants trying to take away our freedoms.
Fear-mongering about the new variants that are coming. Gee whiz, you know what else is coming? An election. They want to restart the COVID hysteria so they can justify more lockdowns, more censorship, more illegal drop boxes, more mail-in ballots, and trillions of dollars in payoffs to their political allies heading into the 2024 election. Does that sound familiar?
Goes on to say when he is reelected to the White House, he will, of course, cut federal funding to any school, college, airline, or public transportation system that imposes a mask mandate or a vaccine mandate. In the meantime, Tucker Carlson is out with a sobering and frightening analysis of what's happening to President Trump in an effort to keep him out of the White House.
So if you begin with criticism, then you go to protest, then you go to impeachment, now you go to indictment, and none of them work, what's next? I mean, graph it out, man. We're speeding toward assassination, obviously, and no one will say that, but I don't know how you can reach that conclusion.
Tucker argues the so-called uniparty in Washington, D.C. has decided that there is something so threatening about President Trump that his campaign or by extension Mr. Trump himself have to be neutralized at all costs. He points to the upcoming March federal trial, saying that the case boils down to Trump simply being tried, for complaining about the election. Craziness. All right, let's get you back to Miranda and Gina as these headlines are brought to you by AMAC.
The Association of Mature American Citizens is the conservative voice for Americans 50 and older. AMAC is fighting for the values that you hold dear. Join today. Together, we can write the course of America.
All right, yesterday we reported that the Ukraine government was suspending elections, yet the Biden administration just shelled out another $250 million in additional aid for the besieged country so that they can buy more weapons. With hurricanes, fires, and famine in our streets, and for many hunger in our homes. What is going on? Joining us now with insight is foreign policy expert Jackson Hinkle, host of The Dive on YouTube. Welcome, Jackson.
Hey, Jackson.
I just have to ask, why aren't we putting this money toward our borders? If we had our borders sealed, we wouldn't be having to spend the amount of money that we're spending to try to take care of all these illegals that are lining the streets. In many cases, our veterans, we could be putting that money toward them. We could be closing our borders and all of the fentanyl that is killing our children, drug lords, et cetera, et cetera. The list goes on with what we could do with this money. Why is it going to Ukraine?
Well, thanks for having me on. I think the answer is quite simple. Everything that this Biden administration is doing is aimed at leaving America in ruins after his 4 years, if he makes it that far, and helping out his globalist friends all across the world, whether it be those in China or those in Ukraine. I mean, we know Mr. Viktor Shokin came out. He was the chief prosecutor that was embroiled in this corruption deal with Joe Biden and his son Hunter Biden, that Joe Biden received a lot of money via bribery schemes through Ukraine when he was vice president under Barack Obama. And now it's clear that Joe Biden's in a hostage situation, and he's more concerned about Ukrainian borders than American borders. He's more concerned about Ukrainians who are fleeing war than our own Americans in Hawaii right now who are dealing with the impacts of these crazy fires. So it's sickening, and it's exactly why we need someone like Donald Trump back in office who's going to fight for American values, America first.
As we listen to all of this...
Yeah, no doubt about it.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead, please.
No, go ahead, Terrance.
All right. As we listen to all of this, one of the things that perturbs a lot of Americans is that there's no real accountability for where this money is going. And while the face of all of this, yes, is Joe Biden, the Uniparty is also responsible. There are many Republicans and Democrats alike who have voted for this funding.
You're 100% correct about that. Make no mistake about it. The people sending us deeper and deeper into this war and closer to World War III, a hot war with Russia. It's not just Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer. It's also individuals like Mitch McConnell right now who are leading us closer and closer to mutually assured destruction. And you're right also in that we don't know where this money is going. There's been some efforts by people like Mr. Paul, the senator from Kentucky, who are trying to fight for further transparency and where this money is going. But I mean, we saw this week another $250 million for Ukraine, but they're only giving $700 out to the individuals impacted by these fires raging on in Hawaii right now. I will add one thing, though. Zelensky may have indicated he was not sympathetic to having elections in Ukraine. So for everyone saying we're fighting for democracy in Ukraine, I would point them to that. But he did make a point, and Donald Trump Jr. talked about this on Instagram this week, that he would have elections, of course, if the United States taxpayer decided to pay for it.
Wow. I think the big thing, too, is nobody knows when the end is happening, like what success looks like. They haven't said that. So it's like we're just constantly writing blank check after blank check. And going to your point, Hawaii, right? What did the president promise those people who lost everything, including loved ones, many of whom have still not been accounted for, that we're anticipating are mostly children, sadly? $700 that they haven't even received. $700 while you're sending another $250
million
over to Ukraine. So, yeah, exactly. Million. Thank you, Terrance. So in the last 30 seconds we have, though, we know how Americans feel about this. There's been poll after poll. They are against this. But it seems like these politicians, again, going to Terrance's point, the Uniparty, they're not listening. So what can Americans do that are watching this show right now? What can they do to make sure that their voice is being heard?
I think the only answer we have right now is to vote for the man who's saying he's going to end this war in 24 hours. He's going to withhold any further funding to Ukraine if they don't sign a peace deal. And I think that's the only plan that's going to bring a peace proposal between Ukraine and Russia. And that man is Donald Trump.
Yeah. Well, Jackson Hinkle, host of The Dive, thank you so much for joining us on American Sunrise. Please come back.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Coming up, going to pot. The FDA is making marijuana less lethal, at least in the eyes of the law, while health officials are asking the FDA to reclassify weed. We'll be right back. It may be swampy, but it is beautiful. That is a beautiful image of D.C., right? Welcome back to American Sunrise again. I hope your Friday Eve is going well. If not, grab some more of that Beard Vet coffee. All right? Now,
I don't know why I thought you were going to say beer. You said you were going to say Beard Vet.
You were just hoping.
Grab some more. Well, at 4 o'clock, our audience on that program often will grab a cocktail and join us, and they call it their happy hour. And we're thrilled they join us for happy hour. But it's too early for happy hour right now.
Way
Beard Vet
too
coffee
early.
it is.
All right, so health officials, did you hear about this, are recommending easing restrictions on marijuana. So they're setting the stage for expanding the cannabis market. So take a look at this. So they're urging now the FDA to reclassify marijuana as a Schedule III substance instead of a Schedule I. Love these terms. What does that mean? Well, it basically indicates a high potential for abuse and a lack of accepted safety under medical supervision. That is a mouthful. Though many states have permitted the use of marijuana, only the FDA can actually approve drugs for medicinal use. Now, last fall, Joe Biden rolled out cannabis-focused initiatives like a pardon of all prior federal offenses of simple possession, and he encouraged governors to do the same at the state level.
Well, I'll tell you what, I worry about that a little bit. As you know, I have a marijuana license in the state of Florida for migraines that I've had, and I tried everything else. Marijuana, unfortunately, didn't really work for me, but I thought I would try it. Never had in my life, thought I would try it. Didn't really work for me. I know it does work, especially for cancer patients and a lot of other folks. So I never want to take that away from them. But when I read the studies about the mental illness that is happening in the younger generation from heavy pot use that we as a society have loosened restrictions on. I read today also an article in the Daily Mail. Stoners have dangerous levels of metals in their blood, a study says. So 21% higher lead content, even if you don't smoke cigarettes, if you smoke pot at all, 21% higher. That's some serious. And what is that doing again to young brains in formation? So I just think we have to be very careful. We have to look at the data. The pot's much stronger than it used to be back in the 60s and 70s when people were smoking it. And anything, I don't care whether you're vaping or what, anything going into your lungs on a consistent basis, I just think is less healthy unless you need it. I think that's a good point. I like what you brought up about younger people as well, because
as we know, drugs affect them differently because you're still developing. Antidepressants can actually make younger people more depressed versus an adult. So good information.
Yeah, the schizophrenia rates in those who smoke pot from a young age are astonishingly higher. It's very, very scary. Anyway, now from getting high to getting booster shots, the Biden administration is pushing for people to get a third jab, this fall, in addition to their flu and COVID shots. Here's what they're saying. The new shot is for RSV, a respiratory disease that can be especially dangerous for infants and older people, but infants are almost always vaccinated for that. Reports say that RSV sends around 58,000 children under 5 to the hospital each year and contributes to 14,000 deaths per year among people 65 and older. So we're supposed to get flu shots and COVID shots and RSV shots now every year or multiple times a year. And I guess we're going to impose those COVID shots on babies too, even though they don't even get that, and it doesn't keep them from getting RSV. Might be a hard sell after the crazy push over the past few years to jab us with untested COVID shots. And we're still seeing the ramifications of those. The government's own numbers on their own website tell us that that COVID shot has probably caused a lot more problems than it has helped.
Yeah, clearly. And the only winners here, Big Pharma.
Big Pharma. Big Pharma getting bigger and bigger
every day at the cost of lives.
Yeah.
If you want to be ready, though, for flu season or really any season, this is something you may want to seriously consider. This is an emergency kit from the Wellness Company. It has just a wide range of medications to treat really just about anything. I mean, it was well thought out. They have a guidebook, so you know what medication to give, when to give it. It can be customized. Again, take a look at it. I mean, they have all sorts of things.
And I love how they do this. They even included ivermectin and a Z-Pack, hard things to get. But if you need them fast, because if you do end up with COVID, you need to treat it early. These days, you got to have these things on hand. And they have other stuff in there, too, even for spider bites, and tick infestations, not infestations, but tick problems.
Tick bites.
Tick bites.
You don't want that Lyme disease is what you're saying.
No, that's right. Go to twc.health/RAV today. Use code RAV at checkout to get your emergency kit, and you get 10% off. So super cool. Got to have this on hand. I think one for every member of your family.
Yeah, and you have a big family. I do. You're going to be stacking up.
It's an expensive prospect for me, but they do make it affordable. So
yeah,
that's
they
awesome.
do. That's great. So from your wellness to a situation that is not all well, that is, of course, in the swamp.
Getting sicker all the time.
Yeah, I'm sorry to say. Look at this headline. So Senator Bob Menendez's wife, are you ready for this? She sold $400K and gold bars months before his office admitted that he was facing federal probe. Yeah, nothing fishy there. As we've been reporting, the Menendez couple now find themselves at the center of an FBI probe.
Lawyers for Menendez are expected to meet with prosecutors in the coming weeks as the Justice Department nears a decision on whether to charge that powerful lawmaker after a years-long corruption probe, though it is unclear what potential counts could be leveled against the Senate Foreign Relations Committee chair, or whether his wife should also be implicated in these government investigations. Yeah. Manhattan federal prosecutors want to know if the senator or his wife received unreported luxury gifts, including a car. It's like Price is Right.
It is. You get a car. You get a car.
And Washington apartments, not bad, not too shabby. Did they get these in return for political favors? Well, that's what this investigation would be looking into.
Yeah, the investigation is the second now for the Jersey senator who has been probed by federal authorities over allegations of corruption. A long-running New Jersey state investigation ended in 2011 with no charges filed, and in 2015 he was indicted after prosecutors from the Justice Department accused him of accepting lavish bribes from a Palm Beach doctor, actually. So,
joining us now with the details on the investigation into Senator Menendez is Gerard Filitti of the Lawfare Project. Welcome, Gerard. Gerard, this investigation feels like it's been going on for years. I swear, I think I've been reporting on this for a decade. So what is taking so long? Doesn't take this long with Trump, I noticed.
Yeah.
That's a good question, and I think you have been reporting on this for a decade because this is how long these scandals have been going on. He was investigated in New Jersey. He was investigated for bribery and corruption. As soon as the last federal investigation ended without being prosecuted, now he's under investigation yet again. It seems that Menendez is perennially in trouble, and you have to see that, when there's smoke, there usually is fire. And this time it's about, it also involves foreign influence, which makes this a lot more serious and a lot more important to investigate thoroughly.
Yeah, kind of reminds me of somebody else we know. In all seriousness, though, is this being dragged out so far that the crimes will reach the statute of limitations and he'll just going to get off like scot-free? I mean, what's the deal here? Because it seems like that seems to be the tactic, at least when it comes to, Joe Biden. Yeah.
Well, Washington insiders I've spoken to, they all seem to agree that Menendez is looking at some serious trouble, especially this time, especially when you're talking about the Egyptian government and relationships with countries that are not, they don't have the friendliest interest in the United States. And Menendez has really skated. He's been lucky in not being prosecuted for what he's been accused of so far. But prosecutors have never really gone easy on him. They've always wanted to get him and for what he's been doing with bribery and corrupt practices, and it looks like this may be their best chance yet. So I would not be sleeping easy if I were Bob Menendez.
But this always begs the question, is he guilty of anything that a lot of politicians aren't guilty of in Washington, D.C.? I mean, it seems to me like this is business as usual in D.C. And while I think that he should definitely be punished for if there are crimes, punished for those crimes. It just really begs the question of what happens to everybody else. And at the top of the pile there, did he take his lessons from Joe Biden?
Well, that is an excellent question because we see a lot of the same conduct with the Biden crime family. We see instances where they're getting away or seeming to be getting away with conduct that would be unacceptable for anyone else, especially if they have an R under their name. What makes Menendez different in a way, and a lot similar to Hunter Biden, actually, is that you do have that influence, the foreign influence. Not that you can get off scot-free if what you're doing is taking bribes or receiving lavish gifts. Those are at the very least ethics violations that are capable of getting you sanctions. But when you are receiving money from foreign governments, and then when in your relationship or in your position of authority, you are in a position to make changes or suggestions about foreign policy or domestic policy, that is the type of thing that is forbidden by law, and that's a very serious charge. So we do have a range here. What Menendez has been accused of in the past has been more, if you will, the street-level offense, taking money that he wasn't earning, taking lavish trips, being treated to lunches and hotels. But now we're talking about gold bars. Now we're talking about money coming in from Egypt. Now we're talking about he was in the head of foreign relations in the Senate. So this raises much more serious questions than what you would call business as usual in D.C.
Yeah, but again, going to Gina's point, it does seem like that's the case. Like no one seems shocked when they find about political corruption, and that's sad that it seems to be becoming more and more apparent. So what do you do there, though, to police them? Because again, reminder, these politicians work for us. We put them in office, and it seems like the media is not doing its job to be the gatekeepers, if you will, for the American people. And something's got to change because you have people that are in office. Take the Joe Biden, for example, who's been in office for over 50 years, that are going into office with very little money and then coming out wealthy as can be.
Yeah, all the time.
How do we better monitor that situation? Because again, this is just one case of many that we see.
Yeah.
Well, part of the issue is all the elected officials have disclosure statements that they need to complete, and they all do so to some extent. The problem, I think, as you're pointing out, is the media is not doing a good job scrutinizing that. The media are interested in some stories and not others, and what they're not interested in is this business as usual, in part because the media are part of the problem. Yeah. They're the same people who are sitting down for lunches with the elected officials and foreign sources. So the media is not doing its job, and the mainstream media that's not doing policing the disclosures and where these elected officials are coming out of office with millions of the Obama family and how they profited, the Clinton family, Biden family. Where are the investigations into that? I mean, Bob Menendez could be seen as a side of, but there are other more
pertinent questions. Yes, I'm sorry, we're up against a break here, but Gerard, we want to thank you for being with us. And still ahead, a football coach dedicated to his team, right to pray before the game under fire as inappropriate to some. Now a victory at the 50-yard line. It's today's moment of faith.
Looking forward to that touchdown. But next, it's time to stay awake and not woke. A young patriot falls victim to a woke crowd, all because of an iconic American flag patch on his backpack. Yes, you can't make this up. Those stories and more when American Sunrise continues. Coffee. You know what that means. It's time for our Stay Awake, Not Woke story, sponsored by our good friends at Beard Vet Coffee. Really the best coffee around. Go to beardvet.com, use the promo code RAV and save yourself 10%. And Harry said, like, he just can't live without it, basically. It's how he gets going through the day. Yeah. First up, though, a young patriot who got caught in the crosshairs of the woke crowd. A video went viral this week of a 12-year-old boy, just can't believe this, getting kicked out of class for displaying a "Don't Tread on Me" flag patch on his backpack. Can't make this up. Take a listen.
The reason that they do not want the flag, the reason we do not want the flag displayed, is due to its origins with slavery and slave trade.
It has nothing to do with slavery. That's like the Revolutionary War patch that was displayed when they were fighting the British. Like that wasn't. That's the revolution. Maybe you're thinking of like the Confederate Confederate flag.
Okay, I am just here to enforce. No, I am here to enforce the policy that was provided by the district.
Okay. Yeah, and I mean, we teach him to always stick up for your beliefs. And I mean, you're going over the revolution for 7th grade. I mean, the founding fathers stood up for what they believed in against unjust laws. This is unjust.
Okay, like I said, we're upholding a policy that was provided to us, which we have to uphold.
Well, I'm impressive that the mom, she's so on the ball.
Oh,
this
she
Mama Grizzly. I love this.
Them.
And that Karen over there that doesn't care, right, with her whole this thing. The boy's mom recorded the video and posted it to X, formerly Twitter. It gained 8,900,000 views. and severe backlash. As the result, the school board directors held an emergency meeting and decided to allow the 12-year-old boy back into the classroom with his patch. Yes, indeed. And not only that, he has had multiple, he bought a whole bunch of them, and he's been handing them out to all of his friends. And he said the school kids have been great to him. Everybody's been very supportive. The teachers have been very bitter and mean to him. Shame on them.
Love it. And I love how she had to like school the educator.
Yeah.
Who didn't even know which flag it was. I mean, that just shows you the state of our education system right now. That is just awful to see something like that. Love to know your thoughts
But
to
this
that.
little guy was so polite through the whole thing. You can tell he's raised right, by golly. You just know it, absolutely.
Yeah.
And Mama knows history better than the people who are supposed to be teaching him. That's
what I said. She schooled them.
In that year of learning about the Revolutionary War, while they're trying to tell her this is some slave thing. It's unbelievable. Anyway, up next, he left the Marines to make a difference in the life of high school students. What he got was a challenge from a woke crowd that went straight to the Supreme Court, all because of the Word of God. Coach Joe Kennedy here with his story next as American Sunrise continues.
Welcome back. Let's look at Chicago, Illinois. They play some good football and basketball in Chicago, but we're going to be heading west for our next story here. We want to talk with Joe Kennedy. He is a 20-year Marine veteran who was an assistant coach for a high school varsity football team. Before he even coached his first game, though, the Marine-turned-football coach made a commitment to God that he would give thanks at the conclusion of each game for what the players had accomplished and for the opportunity to be part of their lives through football. This, unfortunately, though, was met with disapproval from his high school district or from the school district in general, and it turned into a lengthy legal battle that made its way all the way up to the U.S. Supreme Court. His story is now being chronicled in the book Average Joe. Coach Kennedy is here with us this morning to tell us how all of this turned out and what he plans to be doing. Coach, good to see you. First of all, bless you.
Hey, good morning. It's great to be here. Thank you.
So this has been a long, drawn-out process that has kept you away from the team. I would imagine, and I'm kind of riffing here, but I would imagine that all of this was similar to being injured and being out and having to watch your team on the sidelines and not being able to be there in the middle of it.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, from the moment that they suspended me for years, I did have to stand in the stands. I couldn't even be on the sidelines with my guys. So to see them year in and year out without me being with them, that was torture. That was one of the worst things I've ever been through in my life. But this fight was absolutely 100% worth it.
Tomorrow, you get to be back on the sidelines, calling the plays, getting your guys pumped up. How's that feel? How's that going to feel? And what is your expectation for how you'll respond after being away for so long?
Well, I be honest with you, it's been a little rough. I'm kind of rusty. We have a whole new coaching staff, as you can imagine, because this was an 8-year battle just to get back onto the field. So over the 8 years, they've changed the offense, they've changed the defense, and even the special teams. I have all new coaching staff. And the kids were in grade school when all of this was happening. So it's been such a change and a huge eye-opener to see what has changed over the past 8 years alone here at our school.
Obviously, a lot of the focus from outside will be on the X and O's, but is your focus going to be on the crosses tomorrow?
It always is. It really is. My sole purpose, I have the most wonderful, knowledgeable people that do the X's and O's. The offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, the head coach, all of them are just awesome. They know their jobs. They know them inside out and backwards, and they get to focus solely on that. I get to do the really cool thing, and I get to focus on the young men that are doing that, and then giving thanks after the football game. And look at that, bringing God right back into the schools.
Throughout all of this, what's the response been from parents? Obviously, they are key to the decisions that and the exposure that their kids have to faith. What has been the response over the last 8 years, from parents?
I've had nothing but support. You always have your 1 or 2% that are going to complain no matter what kind of news it is. But overall, yeah, just about every single person has been on my side. They've been encouraging. And it's not just here in Bremerton. It's all across Washington and the United States. Millions of Americans have been praying for this for so long and have been stood by my side for the past 8 years during this battle. So this wasn't me. This was all of us fighting this battle so that we could have our freedom. You know what? I'm looking at you, Coach, and I'm smiling now because I'm curious. Have you already started writing out your prayer for tomorrow after the game, or is this going to be an ad-lib thing, or are you just going to let the Spirit guide you? I'm definitely going to have to just tap into this. The Spirit apparently was guiding him there and kind of took over. We apologize, having a couple of technical problems there, weren't able to finish it, but I think he was going to say that he's going to tap into the Spirit, the Holy Spirit, and let it guide him. Again, that was Coach Kennedy there. He'll be playing his first game, or he'll be on the sidelines for his first football game in 8 years after his case was taken to the U.S. Supreme Court. That case, again, had to do with prayer following games, so we wish him and his team all the best tomorrow. Our very own David Brody, by the way, is going to be at that game with him, so we'll get a live report from David Brody on that as well when we see him. But coming up, the insurance industry in Florida has all but collapsed. So who's to blame? That's the big question. That story and more coming up on the second hour of American Sunrise. We're back in just a couple of minutes.
Coming up on the second hour of American Sunrise, Floridians across the state are reeling not just from Hurricane Idalia, but because of hurricanes and tragedies past, making the dream of living in the Sunshine State a nightmare. Are Joe Biden and Ron DeSantis to blame for failed policies and rising insurance rates?
And chasing catastrophe, former Fox News Channel reporter Rick Leventhal takes to the front lines of what it's like to be the calm in the center of the storm.
The future of fair and free elections could be in the palm of your hand and just one click away. Ahead, we'll tap into the app that could make that happen. Those stories and more as the second hour of American Sunrise starts right now. We've got your back as you start your day.
Articulating what the majority of Americans feel today, and I really appreciate that you do.
Y'all tell the truth.
You guys are our voice.
We watch every morning while getting ready for work.
Yes, that's all right. I got my Beer Vet coffee and I am revved up because it is Friday Eve and I'm so excited about our next guest. But what I'm really excited about is our David is back.
Our David is back. David Brody, how are you holding up in the swamp there? Did it get you down for a sec?
Well, it got me down for a little bit. We were having some technical difficulties. I'm back via kind of a backup camera, but I'm around. Don't worry, I haven't been raptured or anything, though I guess if I was raptured and then I'm back, that wouldn't be good news for me, clearly. But anyhow, thank you. I'm glad to be back here on the second hour. Look, the first hour was great because I was listening to it, and now we go into the second hour, and of course, we begin our second hour with Terrance Bates in Denver with headlines. Terrance.
I'm raptured and now I'm back. Okay. All right, David, I like that one. All right, let's get to the top headlines. Apparently, President Biden and Joe Biden reportedly hiding behind executive privilege in order to withhold hundreds of emails relating to Hunter Biden's business dealings, potentially involving then Vice President Joe Biden. Wednesday, America First Legal released 3 batches of emails provided by the National Archives. The request was finally granted after 1 year. However, while about 1,000 emails were turned over, 200 were kept back because they, quote, would disclose confidential advice between the Joe Biden and his advisors. America First Legal points to this stonewall as another example of Joe Biden's claim that there is an absolute wall between his duties as then vice president and now president, as his private life is questionable at best. And in other headlines this morning, new reports out claim that President Trump is contemplating being a no-show at his Fulton County, Georgia arraignment next week. Fulton County Superior Court allows defendants to appear virtually for arraignments or even to waive their right to appear altogether and instead have an attorney enter a not guilty plea in writing. In the meantime, the 45th president is doubling down on what the cases against him are really about.
These crazy indictments against me should be viewed as campaign contributions to crooked Joe Biden and his radical left thugs. This will be their updated form of cheating and election interference. Remember, these are Biden indictments. They're not pure and simple. They're not coming down from heaven.
As President Trump prepares for a March trial for his alleged actions to overturn the 2020 election on January 6th, 2 former Proud Boys leaders who stormed the Capitol on that day are facing the longest sentences yet for what happened that day. Joseph Biggs and Zachary Rail have a date with the judge today for sentencing on seditious conspiracy charges. Prosecutors want to send Biggs to prison for 33 years and Rail for 30 years. If the judge follows the prosecutor's request, the duo would be handed the stiffest sentences so far, outpacing Oath Keepers founder Stuart Rhodes, who is currently serving an 18-year prison sentence. That's a quick check of your headlines. I'll, of course, have more headlines coming your way here in just a little bit. But now, let's get you back to David. He's back, as well as Miranda and Gina. Guys, good morning.
He is. All right, for those of us watching TV from home, the world is brought into, well, their living rooms. For those reporters and journalists in the field, their lives are seeming whirlwind from one major event to another. Former Fox News reporter Rick Leventhal has been through it all. He was on the front lines in Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya, and other conflict zones, to the base of the burning Twin Towers on 9/11.
From the eye of countless hurricanes and then some, Rick Leventhal chronicles some of the most amazing stories he's covered in his 35 years as a news reporter, anchor, and senior correspondent, with some life lessons thrown in along the way. Part memoir, part leadership manifesto, the book Chasing Catastrophe, my 35 years covering wars, hurricanes, terror attacks, and other breaking news. Rick, welcome. Right off the bat, give us your top story from the book.
Well, it opens with my chapter on 9/11, which was obviously a really awful and dramatic day. And I tell the perspective from the ground, from being in the street as the towers collapsed, running to hide in the satellite truck, and then coming out to what looked like the surface of the moon and talking to people who could talk, who were walking out of that dust cloud. I mean, that was just a remarkable, awful, but really compelling day. You know, I do recount my time in the war zones and a lot of hurricane stories. Every time I see another storm pop up like Idalia did, it just sort of gets the juices flowing again, you know, and my wife Kelly looked at me and she goes, are you happy you're not covering this one? And, you know, I'm like, yeah, I kind of am. I mean, it's rough. It's rough out there, and I respect the guys and the men and women who are doing it. But, you know, just come inside. But don't stand out there in the middle of it. It's just not worth it.
Yeah, hearing you say that, obviously I live in Florida, and I've covered more hurricanes than I could like to think, can count, basically. But I remember the first time I covered one, my mother sitting there saying, please tell me you're not one of those idiot reporters standing outside telling other people not to go outside. And I was like, I got to go, Mom, on that note. So, but Rick, we are quickly approaching 9/11. What have you learned since? Okay, with that in mind, I just had my producer, Jason, tell us that we actually have a clip of you covering 9/11. I want to get your reaction to looking at that years later, and also, as we approach the anniversary. So let's go to that real quick.
And we were standing here when there was some sort of collapse or explosion, and everyone started running in this direction. Police officers, pedestrians, EMTs, everybody came running this way. I saw a woman pushing a baby carriage, running for her life, and right behind them was a huge cloud of billowing smoke and ash and debris coming this way. The smoke is obviously cleared somewhat. Ma'am, she's with DCPI. Can you talk to us for just a second? Bring us up to speed. Obviously, people have their hands full out here. It's not easy.
Rick, there's still a lot of questions about those days. How many lives were lost. We're still losing lives, sadly, to cancer and various other illnesses. A lot of people arguing that real Americans are not being treated well. What have you learned from that day to now that you want to get out to the American people?
Well, as awful as that day was, America did come together as one. And that's one of the most compelling, profound things that happened after 9/11 was there was this true spirit that we are all together, and it's time for us all to get closer, to help each other out, and to go find the people who are responsible for bringing this terrorism to America. And there was unity in America. And I feel we're sorely lacking in that now. And one of the things that it just kind of blows my mind is that was 22 years ago. And I have a 17-year-old stepdaughter here who wasn't alive. I mean, it was 5 years later that she was born, and it's just remarkable to me. These kids are growing up. They didn't experience it. They don't realize just how bad it was for this whole country and the world.
Yeah.
And everyone needs to be reminded and could use a reminder of where we were and where we are now.
Rick, there's a lot of It's so true. There's a lot of hype about hurricane winds, but it's not the wind, it's the flooding that kills and destroys. And real coverage of natural disaster is after it happens and the reconstruction of people coming to the aid of others. But that doesn't get the attention that it deserves, does it? What have you seen after natural disasters? Yeah, go ahead.
I was just talking to Kelly about that yesterday, about how so many of the deaths and injuries occur in the days after the storm, when people are trying to clean up and they're trying to do things that maybe they're not equipped to do. They haven't done it in a long time, like climbing up on their roof or working in the yard when there's down power lines and trees and limbs still falling. It's a very dangerous time. The floodwaters, people thinking they can drive through a flooded intersection to get to the other side when they don't realize the road underneath is washed away. I mean, there's so many examples of people doing things they shouldn't do. And, you know, I hope they do heed the warnings, and I hope they do take their time in trying to recover from the storm, because that is the most dangerous time.
Rick, David Brody here in D.C. We have less than a minute left, but I'm curious to get your take on the state of the media today, because you're a dying breed, sadly.
Thank you.
Well, and it's heartfelt and it's true. I believe we're in the age of the correspondent. People that think they're correspondents by day and then become pundits by night. And I'm curious to get your take on where we're heading as a country and as a media overall.
Well, it's sad that so much has been suppressed, so much has been censored. So many people feel like when I watch TV, it's almost like they're working for the government and not for the people, not for a media company, and trying to ask the tough questions. I watch these White House press briefings. I'm like, why aren't they grilling these people about what's going on with their boss? It's remarkable to me how little real reporting is being done. And I respect the people who are out there doing it, but they need to work harder, and there's so many of them who aren't doing enough.
Well, Rick Leventhal, you are doing more than enough, and we appreciate your time here on American Sunrise. Thanks so very much.
Check out our show on YouTube every day called The Daily Smash, and we have a weekly show on Patreon where my wife and I can say whatever we want, and we do. Rick and Kelly Show on Patreon.com.
And that's the way it should be. Thanks, Rick. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Ladies and everybody out there in TV land. Oh, it's so 1970s that I just said that. When we come back, Mitch McConnell, sadly, another incident caught on camera. We will talk about that and the implications of what it means when American Sunrise continues.
whistling background. Can you whistle?
Not really.
I'm not very good at it
when I
either.
do, it's kind of like that annoying dog whistle sound. Like it's like a piercing.
Oh, it's like a piercing one.
It's not a pretty one.
This whistling segment is sponsored by Sea of Mud. SeaofMud.com. Use promo code RAV1776 for your 15% off. Love this. They are a rural American patriotic apparel company, American made, and they have much more than shirts. I can't say the word rural for whatever reason.
It's a difficult
It's a
one
lot
to
of
say.
R's. I don't
It
know.
is.
They have knives. My son's a big collector.
Yeah,
I don't
those are
know
cool
about after
knives.
this operation, but he was before. Drinkware. They have swimwear. They have jewelry. So, great stuff. Check it out because Miranda and I in particular love this website. I'm planning to get a new boat. I'm going to get that new swimsuit. We're going to take a picture. I'm going to get a very conservative
I like
one.
that.
It'll probably be shoulders up, but you'll be able to tell it's the swimsuit.
Well, they have that patriotic one.
And I think you should come out on the boat with me.
I love it. Okay, twist
and
my arm.
We'll get Sea of Mud
Twist me.
suits
Twist
and wear
me.
them. All right, who needs to be drained from the swamp? The answer to that is Mitch McConnell. He had another moment where he froze and seemed to be very confused. Here's that disturbing video.
What are my thoughts about what?
Running for re-election in 2026.
Did you hear the question, Senator? Running for re-election in 2026? All right, I'm sorry, you all. We're going to need a minute. Senator. Benny.
The really upsetting thing about this is it takes away the leverage that anyone in Republican circles have to exert on Joe Biden, and the fact that he's incompetent and should leave and his family shouldn't put him through this, because why are Mitch McConnell's handlers and family still putting him through this? Let the man retire. Republicans, if they had any backbone whatsoever, they would be calling for his retirement. That's what should be happening publicly.
And I think you're right, and I think at this point they're going to be forced to do that. David, don't you think so? I mean, this is the second time. This is the second time, and it's so well publicized. This is out there, and again, I'm not a medical doctor, but my mom has epilepsy. And when I look at that, it's like almost the same look. I've seen people have many strokes and family members, sadly, and epilepsy, but I don't think you can escape that. I really don't. But you tell me, what do you think is going to happen in D.C.?
I think Gina is spot on this. And also this idea that Republicans are going to force him to get out. No, absolutely not. Mitch McConnell will do what Mitch McConnell wants to do. The way he sees it, he's earned that. Of course, we don't agree with that. But the point is that I think he'll get out on his own terms. Look, here's the thing. And Gina, we've talked about this before on the show about ageism and all of this. To me, it's really at this point not about age. It's about competency, clearly, and whether or not he can do the job. I mean, listen, I would rather have Donald Trump at 174 years old in the White House than AOC at 30 whatever. Because she doesn't have all the marbles, clearly.
Great point, David. Yes.
So really this is what it's all about. And let's also be honest. The voters, if they vote Mitch McConnell in yet again the next time around, here's why they're doing it. Because McConnell carries weight in the Senate, and there's a lot of money that goes into Kentucky because of that. And even though McConnell may not have a clue what's going on right now, he's got aides that are taking care of dotting I's and crossing T's and making sure that money gets to Kentucky. And that really shouldn't be the way it is, but it is the way it is in the swamp.
Well, I'd love to know what those of you at home think. You can always weigh in. Again, join us on social media. Is it time to ditch Mitch? And will Republicans do that?
No one who would say no to that, Miranda. I don't think we even need to ask what they think. I think we know. I think the only person that doesn't think that is whoever's profiting from Mitch McConnell still being there.
Exactly. Well, Floridians across the state are starting to think about moving, not because of hurricanes. It's because they're being priced out. Biden and DeSantis, are they to blame for failed policies and rising insurance rates? We're going to discuss that when American Sunrise continues.
Good morning, time check, 23 minutes past the top of the hour. Welcome back to American Sunrise. U.S. Commerce Secretary Gina Loudon says China could soon become, quote, uninvestable for American companies. She points to unexplained fines, raids, and unpredictable official behavior from the Chinese government as reasons that American companies are considering divesting in the communist nation.
My point was U.S. business needs to see some action taken to address these issues. Otherwise, they will deem it as just too risky.
Those comments coming as Raimondo wrapping up her first visit to China as a member of President Biden's cabinet. It's also meant to put pressure on the Chinese, which, of course, is in an economic slump right now and trying to revive investor interest. And Miranda, one of the things that we want to switch gears to, of course, is the very latest on Hurricane Idalia. It is still causing major problems there in Florida where you are.
Yeah, and really across the country, several states being impacted by the storm. I know you're monitoring it. But speaking of an economic slump, as you mentioned, hurricane-battered Floridians dealing with more than just the damage brought by Idalia yesterday. Residents in the Sunshine State are shocked as real estate is in a free-for-all. Insurance premium.
Free fall.
Free fall
Yeah.
is what I meant to say. Insurance, thank you. This is why I miss my girl. Insurance premiums are just going up at a rate, not seen in modern times. Like, we're not talking about a little bit. We're talking about a lot.
A lot of it.
And that trickle-down effect also, that affects homeowners. Their association dues,
rents in some cases because people are renting, but the owners of the buildings' costs are going up so dramatically.
Right. I mean, we talked about this before, right? COVID was a big deal. It was a big driving force for people coming to the Sunshine State. We had a mass influx of people coming from states like New York, New Jersey, you name it, or California, coming here. That could change, though, because the state is becoming more and more expensive. Joining us now with analysis is real estate expert Jerry Pincus. Jerry, thanks so much for joining us. I know this is a hot topic, especially for Gina.
Oh, yeah, I'm mad. I am mad. I'm spitting fire about this one, Jerry.
just to give you an idea, but what can people do? And I just want to put it in perspective. So before we go to this question, let's just put it in perspective. So you had a friend of yours, right, that is going to have to sell her condo because what's the
insurance. This is across the board. I'm hearing this every day from viewers of this program and friends of mine, and my own insurance costs have tripled on my home. But friends of mine already have been impacted. They were moving to Florida. They bought a condo complex. They have to sell that condo complex now because the insurance rates tripled on them as well. What can people do other than move to a different state? And why are they getting this massive insurance bill in the mail?
So what's crazy about this is I'm in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, and I'm getting the fallout from Florida. And what's happened is I went down to Florida because I had so many people coming into our real estate office that were complaining about this, right? It's a big issue. And we have people who are retiring and moving south, and suddenly their costs are going up double and triple. So people are looking in other areas, but the biggest issue, I just had a lady in my office yesterday. She said her insurance went from $2,000 to $5,400. And you look at what's actually happening, there's only so much people can do to escape that. And we've had people who said in 2019 that they told me that 2019 their insurance was $2,000. Then it went to $4,000 in 2020. And then, of course, it keeps on going up, and they got a bill for $13,000. And I mean, think about that. From there to there.
But why?
It's a point where
it's happening.
Right?
It's happening all across the state. Yeah.
It is. No matter where you live, because even if you're central in the state, it's a thing that's happening.
So real quickly, how do we combat that without having a mass exodus? And I know it's happening in other places, but what can we do to fix the situation? And maybe there isn't, except allowing the markets to correct itself.
Well, no, there's.
Well, it's a supply and demand issue when you have so many people have left the marketplace. So if you look at all the insurers that have pulled out of the marketplace, as a matter of fact, Farmers just pulled out last month. And so it's a supply and demand issue. The interesting part about this is Citizens Insurance, which is the insurer of last resort, is now the largest insurer in the state. So, that was supposed to be the bridge, the gap between like Cobra Insurance. If you had a business or if you left a job and you're trying to gap between the next, it would be like Cobra. Well, that's what this Citizens was supposed to do. But unfortunately now it's the largest insurer in the state with 1.3 million insured. So what do we do about this? The only way really to do it is you look at the insurance companies. They're looking at the risk factors. Florida happens to be the number one hurricane state in the nation. So unless we get more people in that are actually in the insurance business that will be adding those insurance policies, I don't have a solution. I wish I did. You're right.
But why would they come? There's no motivation. Ron DeSantis has made it so that there is zero motivation for other insurers to come to the state. I happen to know this issue pretty well because my husband is a former senator from the state of Missouri. We had this problem in Missouri. My husband fixed it. What he did was he had the state back up the insurance companies and say, hey, if you come in and there's a big disaster, the state will have your back. That's all Ron DeSantis has to do. He hasn't done it. And until he does it, no insurer, what insurer, what business mind in the entire world would come into a state like Florida that is clearly going to have more hurricanes, right? Isn't it up to Ron DeSantis to fix this? And why hasn't he?
Well, when I did this video, what's interesting is it first came out, I had 2.8 million views on it. So it's obviously a thing, right? But the comments on the video on the channel on YouTube was amazing because, again, they're saying, what can we do to fix this? And a lot of it is they're saying, who's to blame for this and what can we do about this? Crazy comments. I mean, and there didn't seem to be a solution that came from it from anybody who was commenting in there other than what you just said, which would be to back it up and to make sure that they're solvent and they're not going to have this issue. One of the issues is with Florida that is a big deal, and they've commented about, is that 79% of the lawsuits, homeowners lawsuits, are coming out of the state of Florida when 21% are over the rest of the country. Now think about that. What does that do, right? So when you get the legal involved, prices go up. So for every dollar collected, if you have an attorney who's, $700, $800 an hour, what happens? So the costs exponentially grow. And I think that some controls have to be put in place in order to stop that. And that'll bring some of them back.
Yeah. And Again, this is up to state governments to take care of things like this and ultimately to the executive branch, which is, of course, Ron DeSantis, who's not taking care of it. Anyway, Jerry Pincus, we appreciate it. I'm sorry, I just have to put the blame right where it is because this is really an easy fix. My husband did it in Missouri. We can do it in Florida, but it's killing families here. Thank you for being with us. Let's get to some economic headlines sponsored by AMAC.
The Association of Mature American Citizens is the conservative voice for Americans 50 and older. AMAC is fighting for the values that you hold dear. Join today. Together, we can write the course of America.
The markets are now open. The Dow is up. The S&P 500 up. NASDAQ also up. All of those indices in green at this moment. New home sales spiked by more than 4% in July, which real estate analysts say is surprising due to rising mortgage rates since early 2022. Today, the average rate on a 30-year fixed mortgage is over 7%. It's the first time that rates are this high since November of last year. Mortgage rates have been rising since April when they were around 6.3%. In the meantime, analysts say that housing demand continues to outpace supply nationwide. As a result, more home buyers are investing in newer homes rather than existing ones because they're looking to get more bang for their buck in light of higher interest rates. Well, tragedy can happen at any moment, and that's why it's smart to invest in an emergency food kit right now. As they say, it's better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it. My Patriot Supply is the nation's leader in high-quality emergency food. Head to preparewithrav.com, and you'll save $200 on your 3-month emergency food kit from My Patriot Supply. Enjoy a wide variety of delicious meals offering over 2,000 calories every day for optimum strength under stress. Stock up before panic sets in and grocery store shelves are bare. Free shipping, by the way, is automatic and your order ships fast. So go to preparewithrav.com. That's preparewithrav.com to place your order. Well, right after the break, 2024 is getting saucy. In moments, find out why Republican Governor John Sununu isn't quite the rhino that we thought he may be, and why Democratic Senator Joe Manchin may become the most hated man in both parties. We're right back with American Sunrise in a minute.
It's red, white, and blue. Gotta get out and try it. Red State Barbecue. Red State Barbecue.
And we will get to the saucy stories in just a moment. Love their barbecue sauce.
That reminds me of Rawhide. Do you remember Rawhide? No, it was a TV show that was on, I don't know when. But yeah, the theme. It was great.
Okay. All right. Well, we want to get to... We'll have a dream about our next barbecue, but this segment was, again, sponsored by Red State Barbecue. Love it. Use the promo code RAB10 and save yourself 10% off. And I know you love that apple bourbon.
I love all the flavors. I love the Texas spice. I still haven't gotten to try the Alabama flavor, but I'm going to.
Yeah, that one's got a little bit of horseradish in there, so a lot of people like that.
I love horseradish on just about anything. Anyway, redstatebarbecue.com, RAV, promo code 10. The election starting to kick into overdrive, and for some, that means the beginning of the end of their hopes for the White House, but there is a push by Democrats and Republicans to keep Trump off the ballot. One Never Trump Republican not playing that game, New Hampshire Republican Governor Chris Sununu, says Trump will be on the ballot, even though he hates his guts. That's not a direct quote, by the way.
Yeah.
Fellow Republican Corky Mesner, a losing Senate candidate in 2020, is considering invoking the 14th Amendment clause against those who engage in insurrectional rebellion if President Trump files to have his name on the New Hampshire ballot. Sununu and other prominent Republicans say they want nothing to do with that fight. Guys, I thought that the experts say that Trump can't win elections. So if that's the case, why are they so afraid of his name appearing on the ballot, David?
Yeah, and you make such a good point here, because it seems like everywhere you look, they don't want Trump to run in 2024. They want his name off the ballot. What are they afraid of? It's like they just have to get rid of him. And we know, of course, the reason is they know that Trump is not only good for America, but is bad for them. And that's obviously the key part of all of this. In Michigan, there's actually a lawsuit underway, in essence, trying to get Trump off the ballot there in Michigan. There's there's a lawsuit by a litigator there who has asked the Secretary of State, Jocelyn Benson, to remove Trump from the ballot. And I know Jocelyn Benson, everybody's thinking, uh-oh, because she's well, I'll just say it, she's hard left, she's a flaming liberal. And so I think it'll be interesting to watch some of these liberal Secretary of States as to what they do, because they don't want Trump on the ballot.
Yeah, because they know he could win. What's also saucy, Democratic Senator Joe Manchin asking donors for $100 million. Did you hear about this? So the West Virginia senator and his daughter are pitching donors to support a $100 million push to promote policies and candidates that support the center of the political aisle. Manchin has said that he's fed up with both parties and has been seen as a potential third-party candidate for president.
Manchin, though, hasn't yet declared whether he's running for re-election or higher office, but he's working on making everyone hate him. He won't be able to run for dog catcher if he's not careful. Right, David?
For sure. And let me just be clear, and you can go ahead and mark this. What is today, August 31st? Mark this this air check. Let me just say right now, I believe that Joe Manchin will run for president as the no labels candidate come May or June of next year. No label. I've been talking to the no labels folks. I've interviewed a couple of them independently. They're going to put, they believe that if it's Biden versus Trump, which obviously it appears like it will be that, if it is Biden versus Trump, they are going to run a third-party candidate. And that will either be Joe Manchin, or it could be Larry Hogan, womp womp for both of them. No, they're not going anywhere. But they could be a spoiler, actually, and it would hurt Biden, and that's the concern by Democrats. It would hurt Biden more than Trump, because he's not going to take votes from Trump, but he could take votes from Biden, and that's good news for Trump. So we'll see.
Yeah, but all they got to do is pay off the right people. I'm sorry, I know how politics works. They'll pay off the right people and get them to stand down. I don't know, David. I hope you're right, because I think it would be a great thing. But I just don't. I don't have a lot of confidence in the scheming that goes on behind the scenes there in your swampland.
Well, I'd love to know, again, what our viewers think about this. So you can always chime in and get on social media, because your voice is the most important voice on this network, and we mean that. We know you have lots of options out there, so we appreciate you tuning in to us. But time now to turn to, because none of this is going to matter unless we take care of this issue, and that is to turn to election integrity and security. So take a look at this headline. This, of course, by our friends over at Just the News. The Votify Now app will provide more data by mapping where incidents of irregularity have been reported by voters, you at home. Basically, it puts the power in our hands to stop any funny business at the polls, because that's the key here.
After complaints of election fraud became prevalent in the 2016 presidential and 2018 midterm elections, Johnny Vieira developed to defend our elections and their outcomes, and he joins us right now. Johnny, thank you so much for being here. Tell us how this app works.
Yep, absolutely. First off, thank you for having me. So the Votify Now app works in two specific ways. One, it will allow a user, once they download it, and by the way, people can download it at the Google Play Store if they've got an Android, or at the App Store. It's been live for a couple of years. Or they can go to votifynow.org and learn all about it and download the app there. So in a nutshell, a user is able to report an incident very quickly, write a brief description, take a photo or video. It automatically geo-pings their location that they're at and the time. And once they hit send, that incident then comes to our secure databases. But here's where the real magic happens. We then, after vetting the incident, and I can't go into specifics, obviously, in case any bad actors are listening, on how we vet these incidents, but then quickly the app shares the incidents that are coming in about 10 minutes later with all the app users in the area. So what we do is the incident will get converted into a colored dot, and it'll be placed on the map around the user, so that when a user goes to the additional incident section, when they want to view what's happening in their community, they'll see themselves and they'll see these dots, and they could click on any dot, just like with Zillow or anything else. You click the dot, and then the full election description election irregularity comes up and the user can read the full description and watch the photo or video of what's happening around them. So, we feel that this real-time activity will help steer users in the right direction, avoiding maybe a place where there's long lines, or you'll easily be able to see in an instant what kind of funny business is happening around them. That's the first functionality.
Yeah, Johnny, real quick, let me push you a little bit on the authenticity part of this, because you're saying you can't get into details, and I understand that from a security standpoint. But I do think you need to give our viewers some sense of how you go about vetting how authentic this stuff is, because trust is everything. And if people want to have trust that these are pinging all over the country, how do they know what's legitimate, what's not? And I think, and I understand you can't go into details, but I think we need more than just kind of a generic statement.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's for security, and I cannot go into details. I will tell you, there's a number. So basically, there's about 4 or 5 different levels of security. Everything ranging from the app only letting a user report an incident every, so long. So let's just throw a number out, which I won't give the actual number, but a user may only be able to throw out an incident once every 6 hours or once a day. That's keeping people from reporting multiple incidents. Another thing, we've got AI incorporated into the app that's looking at keywords that we know are traditionally suspicious. And then finally, whenever there's an incident that's reported that makes it high up on our level and gets sort of a red, what we call a red alert, that means the most nefarious. These red alerts, the most serious incidents, will get actual eyeballs on the incident to read the full description and look into it further before it gets vetted. Okay. So this is how we're able to, in a series, we're able to water down the incidents, water through the incidents so that we can only be using manpower to look at the most serious.
Right.
Yeah,
real
again,
quickly, Johnny, we're up against the clock, a hard timeout. So I have to ask you just real quickly, I'm sure 2 questions popping in voters' minds, real Americans that are watching this program. Is there a fee to this? And then what do you do with that information once you have it? Because a lot of people worry about giving too much information, handing it over. Is it going to be used against them?
Yeah, 100%.
Real quickly,
First off,
only 30 seconds.
This is all free. By the way, we take no donations. I have founded and funded the whole project myself. And all the information goes into a very secure database. By the way, most people report this anonymously with just an email address for verification. So I would say maybe 50% of the people are giving their full name. You don't have to give any of that. You can give us, most people give usernames like Patriot67 or, Trump Girl or whatever. They don't have to give their full name. Now, of course, we do have a way to contact them if we see something very, very suspicious. We do have a way to contact them in case we need them to do an affidavit. But by easing the restrictions on what they need to give us as far as information on themselves, we get way more data, and this is all about how much data that comes in.
Great. Appreciate your time. Up against a hard break. Thanks so much. Great app. When we come back, Vivek Ramaswamy, he's the media darling of the moment, but he's about to crash and burn. Next on American Sunrise.
Freedom-loving patriots are falling in love with America's barbecue sauce, Red State Barbecue. Red State's 8 different sauces are perfect for whatever sparks your barbecue palate. Visit redstatebbq.com. That's redstatebbq.com and use promo code RAV10 for 10% off.
Red State Barbecue.
All right, time to spill some tea, and it's really easy to do when you have this girl to the left of you. She is, we're going to create a montage of her spilling tea. I thought I was clumsy, but you take the cake on that. You do. It's a talent.
It's a skill.
It's a skill. Speaking of spilling some tea, let's talk about Vivek Ramaswamy. Today's segment, of course, sponsored by Artillery Tea Company, artilleryteaco.com. That is where you want to go. Literally the best tea around. Use that promo code RAB, save yourself 10%. And I know you love it.
I do. Artillery tea. I'm addicted. Artillery tea is, somebody was joking about potheads, and somebody said, I'm a coffee pothead. And I said, can I be a teapot head?
Yeah, really.
They're whole leaf, they're chemical free, and every tea bag you can use twice. Artillery Tea Company is family and veteran owned and operated. A portion of your purchase, therefore, goes to help veterans and first responder charities. ArtilleryTeaco.com, artilleryteaco.com, promo code RAB for 10% off.
All right. Speaking of spilling some tea in our sights, the man who made a splash, right, at last week's Republican debate, Vivek Ramaswamy, may not be able to handle, apparently, the media attention that's followed him since that first Republican debate, at least, well, not necessarily gracefully. Take a look.
The right remedy is actually abandoning all discrimination and moving forward with colorblind meritocracy in the United States of America.
You took it to another level on Friday. In addition to the comment we played, you took issue with comments from Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley. She reportedly said, quote, "We don't need any more brown faces that don't want to be a brown voice." About that, you said, "These are the words of the modern grand wizards of the modern KKK." You know, I'm sure, the KKK was responsible for more than a century's worth of horrific lynchings, rapes, murders of black people. How in any way are the views you're talking about comparable to the views and atrocities committed by the KKK?
What I said is the Grand Wizards of the KKK would be proud of what they would hear her say, because there's nothing more racist than saying that your skin color predicts something about the content of your viewpoints.
You know, you said aid to Israel, our number one ally, only democracy in the region, should end in 2028, and that they should be integrated with their neighbors. I have an exact quote.
And Sean, you know how politics is played. A lot of the other professional politicians who have been threatened by my rise have used that statement to say that I would cut off aid to Israel. That's not correct.
Yeah, so Vivek's controversial comments related to the KKK and his position on ending aid to Israel came after a recent interview in which he appeared to be misinformed about what the vice president can and cannot do. Yeah.
Well, still, Trump is considering Vivek as his running mate, or at least some say he is. I don't know about that. Donald Trump said, I think he'd be very good. I think he's really distinguished himself. He went on, though, to say that Vivek is getting a little controversial, as we've already pointed out. And there was some hesitation, definitely, in Donald Trump's voice about him. This was certainly not a glowing endorsement. But I think of the batch of people, Vivek is the one that said the nicest things about Donald Trump. So naturally, Donald Trump is going to say nice things back. I don't think we need to read too much into this.
Yeah.
But David, do you think that Vivek could be VP under Trump? You and I have a fun time debating these topics, don't we?
Yes, we do. We have a history, Gina.
We have a history.
I don't think he's going to be the VP. I wouldn't be surprised if it's Kristi Noem. But we can talk. Wait, I know that's a separate topic. Wait, I just want to say something about the Vivek vetting, which you try to say that 5 times fast. Vivek vetting, which is underway.
No, I'll leave that up to you.
Yeah, well, thank you. The Vivek vetting is underway for sure. And here's the thing. On Israel, this is a problem. I'll just be very brief. He first said he wanted to cut off aid to Israel in 2028 under certain conditions. Now he's like, I don't want to cut off aid unless Israel wants us to cut off aid. I'm like, why would Israel want no more U.S. aid? The whole thing is just, I don't know. I need a sedative.
He's learning. He's new. He's green. I don't see this. I don't see this going anywhere real fast. But I do think he'll be around to stay. I think we'll see him in future political efforts. But I don't see him as a VP candidate. My money is on Ronnie Jackson, as I said the other day. All right, Sunny Side Up is coming up next, featuring President Trump. Stick around. More American Sunrise. Back in a moment. right, now it's time for our Sunny Side Up segment, and today's edition features President Trump. Take a listen to these words of wisdom.
Every young American deserves to know that they are the heirs to an incredible history given to us by a legion of true American heroes. Individuals like George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Betsy Ross, Frederick Douglass, Abraham Lincoln, Harriet Tubman, Susan B. Anthony, Teddy Roosevelt, Generals George Patton, Douglas MacArthur.
Thank you very much. And you can hear from the president tonight on Just the News, No Noise, with John Solomon and Amanda Head. You don't want to miss that. It's going to be a great interview. 6 p.m. Eastern time. Again, be sure and check that out. Also, real quickly, Ant on the Getter Chat says, Kristi Noem, good pick. So that goes out to David, and then also Carefree Largo agrees with you, Gina.
Love you, Carefree.
Ronnie Jackson. All right. And be sure and catch us next week. We're going on the road with Harry on the Highway.
Yes.
Special report. We're going to be live from the Villages on Tuesday at 4 o'clock Eastern time. And then we're going to be, this is me and Gina, joining David again. He'll join us via wherever he is.
Yes.
But we're going to be there at City Fire. So looking forward to that 8 o'clock Eastern time.
And if you're nearby,
on Wednesday, come on by.
We want you to come by.
Say
come on
hi.
down, say hello, be part of our studio audience that'll be there at the Villages.
Be a part of our family.
That's
call you an
right.
audience. You're one of us. We're part of the family.
That's right.
All right. We're going to
Terrance and David, we're going to see you tomorrow. Miranda and I will see all of you, as we said, at 4 p.m.
So looking forward to that. And just a reminder, War Room is next with Steve Bannon. Hope you have a wonderful Friday Eve.
Yes.
We'll see you at 4.
Live the truth.
This is the primal scream of a dying regime. Pray for our enemies, because we're going medieval on these people. You're just not got a free shot on all these networks lying about the people. The people have had a belly full of it. I know you don't like hearing that. I know you try to do everything in the world to stop that, but you're not going to stop it. It's going to happen.
And where do people like that go to share the big lie? MAGA media. I wish in my soul, I wish that any of these people had a conscience.
Ask yourself, what is my task and what is my purpose? If that answer is to save my country, this country will be saved.
War Room. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
It's Thursday, 31 August in the year of our Lord 2023. CNBC is reporting that 61% of your fellow citizens, the American people, are living paycheck to paycheck, while inflation, core inflation, about how one lives one's life if you're part of the working class in this country, still spirals out of control. Financial Times of London, one of the lead stories, the EU is going to set a record for purchases of liquefied natural gas from Russia. We're going to get into a lot of economic news today. We're going to go to also to Georgia, a firestorm down there about Fonnie Willis, so we'll get into all of that. Harrison Floyd, who's now been released from jail, is going to join us. Also, the vice chairman of the GOP and Senator Colton Moore. Tiffany Justice is going to join us here momentarily about an Axios report, I think the biggest gap ever in the American people having confidence in K through 12, so the Moms for Liberty will be here. But I want to start because I want to put this on the table, and because a lot of things happening out there. There are stories about, beer consumption and ceiling fans and all this, but there's a young woman